Hello, guys. Welcome back to Get Your Shit Together. I am your host, Belen Salomon, and this is episode 15. It is currently 5 million degrees here in Texas, in Austin. If you're watching this YouTube video of the podcast, you can see Fiona behind me, and she is melting. We've literally have had the AC blasting, and nothing's enough. It's just not keeping us cool enough. It's currently Sunday, and it was a good week, a bit of an emotional week for me. I started back in therapy. I hadn't been in 2.5 months. Scheduling, my therapist was out of town, and then I was out of town, just could not coordinate, but we're back on track. And just in those 2.5 months, like so much obviously had been, built up and shoved it down because I'm excellent at that. And yeah, really, it's always very liberating and really great, and also very draining. So kind of all those things, plus you add in the heat, and it was a lot. And I'm happy to get into a little bit more about therapy and anxiety and mental health. So if that is something that you guys are interested in, I'm happy to do a more in-depth episode on that. But started back up with that. And tomorrow I'm heading to St. Louis. I'm very excited. It's my first time. It's Sam's 30th. She was on the podcast. She was my first guest, and she's turning 30, which is crazy because I can't believe she's only 30. She's a baby. So I'm heading there, just going for a quick 24 hours. So very excited. It's kind of throwing me off because you guys know how I feel about Mondays. So it's going to be strange, kind of like being like playing hooky, if you will, on a Monday. But I'm very excited. It's also 100 degrees there, so I'm not really getting a break from the weather. But hopefully it's not as humid. So doing that, found 3 scorpions this week in the house. So obviously, I'm slightly traumatized. Pest control came out. I feel like I need to specifically hire somebody who deals with scorpions, because obviously I Googled and barely slept last night because Alejandro was like, they don't climb, don't worry about it. Well, spoiler alert, they love to fucking climb. They're excellent climbers, actually. So I'm unwell, and I can't believe we found 3 in 1 week. I found one in the laundry room, one right outside our sliding doors, and last night we found one walking out of the pantry. So, and they always say they always travel in groups. So TBD on that. We grilled yesterday. It's officially grilling season. It was really nice. And I went to the lake. Oh my God. I can't believe I just remembered this right now. So we've lived here now 14 months. We've never been to the lake. And last year we didn't go. I was really not in a mental space last year of wanting to actually explore Austin. Obviously, it is no secret that it was a very difficult transition for me moving here. And I just mentally was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't care. That's a different episode. But this year we've got a better attitude, and I've been wanting to go, and Sergio, our editor, he goes all the time. So on Thursday he was here. He came over on Wednesday. He helped me film a couple reels, and I was like, I really want to go to the lake. He was like, I'm going to go this week. Let's go. Just come. And let's tell Alejandro. Alejandro was too tired on Thursday. Thursdays is a very draining day for him, just work-wise. He goes for 14 hours straight. So anyways, I went to the lake with Sergio. It was fucking magnificent. We went paddleboarding. I had not been paddleboarding in probably 15 years. And it was so much fun. The lake was amazing. The people, there was a live band. Everyone was just vibing and happy and in a good mood. And it really, truly made me realize how important it is for me to do things that feed my soul and spark joy. And I talk about this a lot on Instagram, and there's always small things that spark joy, and I'm always on the hunt for them and searching for them, and they're always free. It's always nature. It's always being with friends. And, this really reiterated for me how important it is that I make time to do these things, and I shouldn't let, obstacles, or, maybe a friend doesn't want to go or Alejandro doesn't want to go and not do these things. And that's why I went with Sergio, because I was like, fuck it. Like, why shouldn't I go? Just because Alejandro doesn't want to go, I'm going to go. And it was just so joyful. And people had their dogs. I'm hoping maybe one day I can bring Fiona. And it was just a vibe. Like, music was playing, people were drinking, I jumped in the water. It was amazing. And then, like, when we left, we went to go pick up some sandwiches, and I was like in the car with the towel wrapped around me. And I literally was like, wow, I have not done this in 10 years, maybe longer. Just like being in the car, like, and like with the towel on, like after swimming or being at the beach, and like, I just don't do these things anymore. I always find an excuse. I always find an obstacle or blame something or someone for not doing these things. And it was just like, driving back with the windows down, listening to great music. And it was just like, I have to do this once a week. The lake's fucking 25 minutes from us. Like, there's just like no excuse, So I came back, I was like high on life, and I told Alejandro, I was like, it really like reiterated to me the importance of this and being around people in a community. And I don't know these people obviously that were on the lake, but it was like everyone's like-minded. Everyone just wanted to have like a great time in nature and just like vibe out basically. And, kind of finishing your day like that. And it was really, really amazing and eye-opening. And I was like, we're doing this once a week. It's going to be our summer thing. And obviously I've already ordered 50 things for the lake, and I truly cannot wait to take Alejandro this upcoming week. So if you're in Austin and you're a newbie to Austin and you haven't been, make sure you get out to the lake, because it was really amazing. And serious shout out to Sergio letting me tag along and showing me the ropes, because I was pretty useless. So that's kind of my week recap. Okay, let's jump into today's episode 15. So I asked you guys on Instagram any topics that you wanted me to cover, and you guys sent so many amazing ones. So thank you so much. But I want to do like so many of these, but the one I decided to pick today was this particular one, and it says communication in relationships, friends, marriage, colleagues, etc. And I thought this was a great topic, because I think communication is obviously huge and we all struggle with it. And being married to somebody who doesn't love communication, I feel like I can give a couple tips to this. I don't want to generalize, but I feel like women are bigger communicators by nature. And I'm always like, want to talk about my feelings. And like Alejandro's like, just like end it all right now. Like, I don't want to talk about her feelings. So I'm excited to kind of get into this. And I feel like the like, not tips, but like what I'm going to be suggesting is just more generality. Like, I don't want to be specific to like your employee or this or that. Like, at the end of the day, it's all about, respect, and you should be talking to everyone equally. Of course, if it's maybe like, your kid or your spouse, and depending on the topic, of course, it's going to be a little bit more, catered to each situation, but ultimately it is about respect. So, my first like tip will be listen to the person, what they're saying. I think, when you're talking to, let's say, your partner and you're hurt, it's so easy to, get into defense mode. And I'm an extremely sensitive person. Like, I can dish it and I cannot take it. This is something that Alejandro and I, this is an argument that we have a lot. Not a lot, but like, this is a topic that it constantly comes up, because I'm super sensitive and he's not. And then like, if he says something and I get really like defensive, it's like, you need to work on how like sensitive you are with insignificant shit, of course, always. And so I think, when you are kind of put your boundaries down, you listen to the person that is talking to you, but whatever dilemma it is, whether it's your partner or your friend or your sibling or your parent or your employer, just listen. Don't interrupt that person. Don't be like, well, actually, just let that person speak, because ultimately all of our feelings are validated. And, if you kind of just like sit back and allow that person to speak without interrupting them and attacking them, it will go 90% much smoother than you interrupting them, getting defensive. Your body language. Body language is so huge. And I forget about this sometimes if I'm like having a discussion with someone, whether it's my sibling or my parents or Alejandro, and it's like, your arms are crossed, and then you're like kind of getting defensive with your body, and of course facial expressions, which I'm terrible at. Like I'm so expressive, and it's like immediately you can read my face. Like I don't know how to sit there and be like, yeah, okay. I'm like thinking about, oh, this is what I'm going to fucking say to this person, and it's a constant, of course, work in progress. And, if you can just remove yourself from it and just truly listen to that person, the dialogue is going to go much better than you immediately getting in defense mode. Writing it out is so key. I always write things out. It could just even be a brain dump if something's on my mind. Like 50% of the chance I don't even end up having the conversation because a lot of it I've built up in my head, or I like project. I think a lot of us project a lot onto the person that we want to have the conversation to. So if you write it out, there's two ways to go about this. You can write it out, write out your feelings, kind of get it out. If there's anger, maybe like writing it out gets it out. And also just write out maybe in bullet points the topics that you want to cover, because sometimes when we're having conversations with people in the heat of the moment, you forget even what you're talking to the person about. And then there's been so many times when I've walked away from a conversation like, fuck, I should have said X, Y, and Z. I should have written it down. I didn't even cover what I wanted to talk about because my emotions took over, and it's normal. It's okay. But that tends to happen. So I'm not saying have a speech, but if it helps to have things written down, and try not to use your phone, just write it down on a piece of paper and be like, okay, I want to talk to you about how this makes me feel and what I need from you, or, how this upset me, whatever it is. Maybe write down, 4 or 5 things and have a little bit more clarity when you're speaking to that person, so that you're not also all over the place and emotional and angry and all the other emotions that come with communicating. And I find that writing it out really helps. And same thing goes with a text message, by the way. We've all been on our phone, type. Read it before you send it. Although now Apple just announced that you can delete it, which is insane. But point being, go into your notes and write it out. Send yourself an email, read it before you hit send. Because again, our emotions get in the way, and you're like, I shouldn't have said that. I should have not used that language. I should have said it from a different point of view. Because at the end of the day, it's all about delivery. It is all about how you express yourself. So if you're coming to your partner and you're saying, hey, really upset me that you disregarded, that I wanted to, go on a walk after dinner. Let's just say it's that. If you approach your partner like that, they're going to be a lot more like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to upset you so much. Whereas if you go up to your partner and you're like, wow, really? Well, we were supposed to go for a walk, but of course you had to disappoint me. And of course you couldn't make it a priority. And by the way, I've been on both sides of this, and I've been like the person talking like this, and it never goes anywhere when you're passive aggressive and you're intense. And there's been so many times, obviously I've been with Alejandro 14 years, and we've both have done this to each other. And it takes time, it takes growth. We're all human. And you could be having a super shitty day and you're just taking it out on someone. And we have this tendency to have these victim mindsets. And if you just approach somebody with kindness and respect and just say, hey, this is important to me. And even a perfect example, I think this was last night actually, or was it this morning? I think it was last night. And I obviously I take Fiona out on a walk every day. And it means a lot to me when Alejandro comes with us, because he doesn't come with us. It's just I walk Fiona. And when he does, it really brings me joy. And I think Fiona. And so I just said to him last night, I was like, hey, it would like really mean a lot to me if you would like walk with Fiona and I like once or twice a week, either in the morning or in the evening. And he was like, of course, I'd love to. Had I come to him and been like, you know, I just can't believe like you don't go on walks with me and Fiona. Like, wow. He would have been like, what the fuck? Like, why are you telling me like this? And I think a lot of the times, like we forget to just like ask our partners, our friends, our family, what they need, you know? And it could be as simple as like, hey, I need you to just take the trash out once a week. Or, you know, if it's your coworker and you're like, hey, like it would really help me out if you would help me with like this, I don't know, whatever the task is that you have in your job. Or, you know, your classmate, like, hey, it would really help me out if you picked up like, you know, this shift or whatever it is. And sometimes people just don't know. I think we always fixate on like what's wrong instead of how to be like, okay, what is the best way to communicate so we can kind of resolve this? And I think asking as simple as what do you need from me? What can I do to make things easier for you? And maybe, you know, if I say that to Alejandro, maybe he's like, you know, it would like mean a lot to me if you went on a run with me. Just an example. I'm not a runner, by the way. So hopefully he never asked me this. But if it was important to him, I'd be like, okay, well, I'll jog, you know? So it's so much about how we present it and thinking it through. So back to the text message, if that is the form of you wanting to send it, read it before you send it. Think before you speak. That ties in with the writing it down. Like just think about what you're going to be saying because again, our emotions really take over and it can just be complete sabotage. And I can't tell you how many times like, and I'm sure anyone who's listening to this who's in a relationship or like it doesn't even matter if you're in a relationship, but this has happened. Like you can be having the best time with your friend or your family or your partner and you guys get into the dumbest argument and it just fucking unravels everything. Like you can be having the best day and like one thing happens. It's always over the dumbest shit. Always. And it's just because you didn't think before you were speaking. And I think that is such a small thing to do, but we forget about it so often. Another thing that you can be doing too, if you don't want to like write it down, let's vent, call your friend, call your girlfriend, call your best friend, and just get it off your chest. Because if you're getting it off your chest, there's like a layer of anger and rage or disappointment or sadness, whatever the emotion is that you're feeling, that you are going to be able to like get off your chest by talking it out with a friend, so that when you go to speak to whoever you want to talk to about your issue or your dilemma and communicate this, it's going to go a little bit smoother because you kind of got out that like, that's inside of you out. And again, these are all kind of the same things, right? Like writing it out, reading, thinking before you're speaking, and venting. Because if you just dive in head first, it's just a disaster. And like truly take it from me, because I can't tell you how many times I have stuck my foot in my mouth because I have not done these steps. Now as an adult and somebody who is a little bit more aware of herself, especially these past couple of years where I've really been doing a lot of work on myself and trying to figure out like, where is this stemming from? Where is this fear stemming from? And this insecurity? Because when we're angry, you know, the other side of anger is fear. And it's fear-based. Whatever is going on where that anger is coming from, like fear of somebody leaving you, fear of somebody betraying you, fear of being left behind. And, you know, when we can look at it from that point of view, you can take a step back and be like, okay, what's really triggering this? Why am I feeling like this? What did that person, like, is it really what that person did or said or acted like? Or is this deeper than this? Is this more rooted? And again, this applies to your employees, to your boss, to your family, to your friendships. And if you really can take that step back, it opens up so many other gates to realize, okay, it's actually this that's really hurting me. And it could be the last thing that you thought it was. And, it's a constant learning process for me. And, it's a work in progress. We're always trying to better ourselves. And I've actually been reading some really great books. I'm going to put them in the notes, and some really amazing podcasts also that I've just been listening to about kind of communication too, and just relationships, and just kind of taking accountability for your own shit before you enter the space of having a dialogue with somebody in the communication aspect. Another thing that you can do is have a positive mindset when you're having this dialogue. And this is something like I really have been trying to implement, because I come from a fear place, and I've been like this my whole life, as long as I can remember. It's like the fight or flight, and I come from a fear-based always. And a lot of the times I imagine scenarios in my head, and like, even, with Alejandro, if there's something I've been wanting to talk to him about, I go into it so nervous, where I should be going into it like optimistic and positive and being like, okay, we're gonna have a conversation, we're adults, what's the worst that's gonna happen? We're both gonna communicate, we're both gonna tell each other how we're feeling. But I'll go into it so nervous. And by the way, this can also be with a friendship. Let's say like I had a disagreement with a girlfriend, or there's this weird awkwardness, and like we just grew apart. Like I'm going into it fear-based because I'm protecting myself. I'm like, oh, okay, well, if she doesn't want to talk to me, or she thinks I'm a bitch, or whatever it is, I don't care. Don't go into it like that. Go into it positive. Like, okay, I'm doing my best. I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm going to do, what I think is best for me and the situation. I'm going to listen to him, and I'm going to not have a standoff approach. I'm going to be like relaxed and listen and not interrupt them, and just, like go into it with a positive attitude. And I know it's so much easier said than done, especially when you're like full of rage and anger, but it's always better to go into it like that, because you're winning. You're not going into it angry, And again, trust me, I'm taking my own advice on this, because there's many times where I don't go into it level-headed, and I'll go into it like very hot-headed. And listen, I have a temper. I'm very hot-headed. I'm fucking Spanish, half Italian, and I'm an Aries. Really, Alejandro gets the worst of it. I mean, I kind of get the worst of it too, because he's Latin and a Sagittarius. There's a lot of fire signs happening in this household. And, but anytime I've gone to it with more of a calm approach and a positive approach, the conversation and dialogue goes so much better. And again, this applies to any person that you're communicating with. It does not have to be your spouse. It can be any dialogue, even like going into the DMV. If you're going into it with a smile and excited, and you're asking somebody how they are, and they want to be a shithead, and they want to have a poor attitude, and they want to be pissy, hey, you did your best. You tried, and you can leave there being like, you know what? I went in smiling. I can't do anything about that person being miserable, but at least you went in like optimistic and happy and with a smile on your face. And the last thing is, and I'm definitely taking my own advice on this one, is don't let unresolved matters go unanswered. I think we have a tendency to shove it under the rug and shove it under the rug, and we also shove it down, where it never gets resolved, and then resentment builds, and then you're angry, and then you get to such a fucking horrible place. And again, this applies to me in my relationship, where I've just shoved it and shoved it and shoved it, and it's like, if I could just put my ego aside and put my fear or insecurities aside and just have an adult conversation, I'm going to feel so much better. And by the way, so is the person that you want to having this conversation with, because I guarantee you they're also feeling that way too. But that person's maybe waiting for you to make the move, or whatever it is. Who cares? Just don't let weeks, months, years go by, because you are just going to build so much fucking resentment and just be so mad at this person. And then for what? For what? You've lost all this time, weeks, days, hours, years, over a matter that you could have resolved had you not just been stubborn or let it be like, well, they need to be the first person. And trust me, I've been there. I think in the entire time I've been with Alejandro, he's never been like, let's talk about this. It's always me. And for so long, I've been like, I'm standing my ground. But then I just kind of accepted and realized, like, that's not his strong suit. And that's where I know for me, for like my role is that I can be like, hey, I want to talk about this. And, you know, there's always, you know, one's weaker, one's stronger, and that's okay. Know your strengths. And if you're the person who is more of the communicator, initiate it. Don't sit there and think that that person's suddenly going to change and be like, oh, hey, I wrote down some stuff. Let's talk about it. It's just not going to happen. So don't let it just marinate and let it be unanswered. So I really hope this was helpful. As I talked about this, I really was like, you know what, bitch, you need to take all of these notes that you just gave for yourself in your own relationships. And at the end of the day, we're human beings. We've got a lot of shit. We've got a lot of emotions. We're all kind of fucked up. But knowing this and trying your best and going into things again with respect and listening and just kind of being the best version of yourself, you're going to be okay, and you're not going to regret trying all of these things, because that means that you care and that you are really trying to be the bigger person and make a difference. And just remember, like, don't feel like you can't speak up for yourself, whatever the situation is or who you want to communicate with. So yeah, I'm going to go wrap up my day. I gotta go pack, but I will see you guys next week. Please make sure that you subscribe, you follow, and you can find it on all platforms. And if you leave your review, I really appreciate it. You really appreciate it. And I love you guys. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.